Why do we need the moment of darkness? Why do we need the journey into the underworld? This is a big theme when we look at any story. There's a moment where someone crosses the threshold and they enter the dark night. This could be the dark night of the soul. It could be the one of challenge, of consequence, where they enter a different space. And when I say space, we enter the liminal world. This is the underworld. This is where someone goes to transform. And in story, this is such a common theme. But it doesn't just exist in story, it exists in our life. So why is there often this need for the trial, the tribulation, before we're able to create the vision or the goal? Now, if we look at Joseph Campbell, he had the hero's journey, which was the 17-stage process where someone would go on a great quest, an adventure, and throughout that, they would go through different stages that would then allow them to reach their destination. Now, this was both a literal journey that this person would go on in the outside world, but also an internal experience of what would happen in the internal reality of that person and how they would change. And when we go on any journey, the same thing happens. The same stages generally play out. Now, it's a map, it's not perfect, but it gives us an idea, a perspective of what might transpire when we say, hey, I want this vision, I want to go after this. And when we see this, well, we have an idea of what to expect. Now, in that, the underworld is a big part of the stages. If you look at the hero's journey framework, it's generally about half of the journey being their call, which is the first stage where someone has a call to adventure, where it's like, yes, there's often a denial of that call, a rejection of it until life makes it unbearable to go reject. And then they also have the return, which is the coming home, the collection of the boon, the celebration, the victory. But in between, we have the underworld. And this is one of the harder parts within the journey. It's one we don't like to face. There's a lot of trials, there's tribulations, there's struggles. And so why is it that we need this? Because a lot of us, we're living in a world where we're like, hey, I just want this thing. I just want the instant gratification. I want to create this, but I don't want to do the work to actually make it happen. So why is this? And what does the underworld truly invite us into? Well, the underworld, and this is what I was speaking to with this being liminal space. It's a space of transformation. In a sense, it's a cocoon that is going to allow you to transform into something that you are not. Because when you set out on a journey, you are actually not the person you need to be to complete that journey, to achieve the end result. And that's why we go on any journey, especially as men, we have this desire for our innate potential to grow and expand. And I believe it's one of our basic instincts to meet that. It's why so many chase money, wealth, power, because in that it actually causes an alchemical change that makes a person move towards their potential. And we get caught in the superficial levels of reality where it's like, oh, it's about the money. No, it's actually about becoming who you came here to be. And that's a very different relationship to money, to wealth, to power. It's like, it's not really about the thing. It's about the deeper desire that unlocks. So when we go on that journey, at the start, we're a little bit of the fool. If we look at the tarot, the fool sets out on the journey. There's an ignorance, there's a naivety, there's a shiny-eyedness of like, yeah, I can just walk along and create what I want to create. Maybe I don't know about consequence yet. Maybe I don't know what sacrifice means. Maybe I don't know what it means to work towards what I want. And I have a lot of vision, I have a lot of dreams, but I never enact upon them. This is the dreamer. This is the one who has many calls to adventure, but never embarks upon them because This may frighten them, it may scare them, it may confront them, and they don't want to confront the insecurities, the anxieties, the wounding, the trauma that actually lives within them. And where it begins to surface is actually in the underworld. This is the space where it actually begins to rise up so we can meet. Because the reason you aren't the person that you need to be at the start of the journey is because you haven't been through the underworld. This is what shapes us. And in a metaphorical sense, the underworld is a representation of the unconscious material that lives within you. And this is why we're not able to just go straight away to become the version of us. When people talk in this newer spiritual age where you can just quantum leap or just affirmations or positive thought, what they're often doing is bypassing that unconscious stage of development, which is the bucket work, it's the ashes work, where we must tend to the unconscious, the parts of ourselves that do feel insecure, that do feel not good enough, and confront them. And this confrontation is confrontation with ourselves, because it's actually not about conquest. It's not about conquering anything outside of ourselves. It's actually about learning to conquer ourselves, to show that we can become the masters, the saviors of ourselves. And that means overcoming the limitations that we place within ourselves of, I can't do that, I have no power, I'm hopeless, I'm stupid, I'm dumb. All these stories that we tell ourselves that would determine that, hey, I'm not good enough to do this thing. And to meet those parts of you, because in that, and this is something I may need to go into more, is an invitation into the depths of yourself. In the insecurity, there's a part of you that whispers, and this is going into more parts work. You can look at integral theory, parts work, inner child work if you really want to go deep, and I'll do more videos on this. But you begin to hear the parts of you that haven't received love and presence. And when you sit here and sit with them in the underworld, in the darkness, you begin to radiate light. And you become a beacon for these parts of you to become home. And what this journey is really about is coming into wholeness. And that's not always through ease and flow. Sometimes that's through hardship, that's through challenge, and coming back to the vision of, hey, what are you here to create? What are you here to do? And when you're able to do that, when you're able to hold that vision despite the million different reasons that you have given yourself to turn away, to procrastinate, to not do the thing you're here to do, well, when you have that and actually begin to move forward, it really begins to change what you're here to do. Because it's no longer, fear is no longer controlling you. It hasn't become a problem for you to have fear. You can actually move towards it, because if you want to expand or grow or experience something new, you're going to enter the unknown reality of life. We live in basically a bubble nowadays where everything is very known, it's predictable. You can put in a Google map of anywhere and show up and know what time you've got to be there. And we live in a very structured society that gives you exactly what you think you want. And that prevents us from entering the unknown on a regular basis. And in the unknown lives fear, because it's outside the normal realm of your knowing, which is normal for humans. We are meant to be afraid of the unknown because it's outside our known reality. So there's a primal instinct which comes in to protect us. But what we're wanting to do is redesign that primal instinct to show it that it's actually safe to enter into the unknown, to step outside of the box, the structure, the normal way of being. Not that that's bad, we do need that, but that we can also enter into this unknown space where we can grow, expand, and also potential lives. If we're playing in the same realm again and again, well, there's a limitation here that doesn't offer expansion, that doesn't offer new possibility, because you're doing the same thing day in and day out. So how is there going to be a different reality created? There can't be, because you're stuck in the same limitation, the same box. So in all of this, as you go into this call to adventure, which is like, I want to enter the unknown, which is any call. It's like, hey, I want to see what happens once I expand, or once I try this, or make this decision. Because there's this innate part of you that wants to grow and see something different or try something new, which is so beautiful and needs to be honored. You don't need to answer every call, but you do need to answer the genuine calls that your soul's like, hey, I do need to do this. And when you do that, it begins to unlock something inside of you, because each time you answer that, it takes you on that journey into the underworld. And here it's like, oh, you doubt yourself because you don't believe you have the power to create, or you don't have the capacity, and you have to figure it out. There's not as much safety nets. There's a turning point where you can't actually turn around and be like, oh, I just want to go back to the safety of what I know before. And this is where people talk about burning the boats of like, hey, I'm going to leave my life behind and let it all crumble. And sometimes that's needed, because in the doing of that, it actually allows the disintegration of the safety. So the only way forward is the only way forward. You can't turn around. And there's a beauty in that. It's not always necessary. But if that's what you need to actually take the steps to move forward in your life, maybe it's something to consider. Because there's a point here that if you don't answer this call, it's always going to be there. And what happens when we don't answer that call, that thing that's like, hey, I actually want more for you, I want more for this world. I call that the soul. And I think a lot of people would agree that there's an innate part of us that calls to adventure. You could call that soul, you could call that mystery, you could call that muse, eros, so many beautiful words. But if you ignore that, what happens to the human soul? It dies, it disintegrates, it lacks the beauty and the excitement and the passion that invigorates people back into the fullness of who they're here to be. We're meant to be explorers. We're meant to not know everything. And this is one of the traps of the modern world. We have limitless information. We can learn about anything. We can have every concept memorized. We can know all the analytical details and work it all out and have all the practices and have all the theories within our mind. But until we have lived it in a physical state and gone through that experience and lived it within our bodies, it's just knowledge. It's not wisdom. It's not something we can truly share as our own. It's a concept and an idea, and we haven't applied it to the world. And what we need to become is experimenters. We need to be scientists with this information we receive and actually test it. Does this work for me? Does this apply? Does this make me feel better, more alive, more passionate? Does this inspire me, bring me into my fullness? Does this help me create the world I want to create for me? Because if not, well, maybe that information isn't true for you, and that's completely okay. It doesn't make the information wrong. It just means it's not for you. And that's what's going to happen, because the underworld, it's chipping away what isn't you. It's chipping away the bullshit. It's chipping away the stories of who you thought you had to be. It's chipping away the beliefs that aren't actually yours. It's asking you that you heal the trauma of your ancestry. It's asking you to discover your voice that maybe you didn't have before. And it's like, hey, there's actually more here for you. And if you're willing to pick up the sword and say, okay, I'm gonna face myself here. I'm gonna face what I need to do within the underworld. And there's a stage of the underworld which is called the cave that we fear to enter. And this is an analogy for our deepest wound, the things that we are truly afraid of within ourselves. Now, this can be childhood trauma. It could be an experience that you had when you were very young that you wish to not acknowledge. And there's a saying that our gifts live in the garden of our wounds, and that if we approach that in the right way, that then we will begin to discover our gifts. And if we look at any great hero, Luke Skywalker, Frodo Baggins, I'm a big fan of them, you'll see that at the start, they're very naive. They don't know what their quest is going to take. But along the way, they are asked to face these trials, these tribulations that begin to shape them into a mature person who is able to lead and complete their quest. And it does take sacrifice. It does take allies. It does take those that would support them along the way. And there's such a beauty in this. So as we go on the underworld, let it shape you, because you will not emerge the same person that you entered as. And this is the point. There's a death and a dying that happens here because it's the sacrifice that is being made. And this is what often happens when people don't want to enter the underworld, is that they're afraid to die. And this is a general fear that most of us will have. And it's not a physical death we're actually afraid of, though that can be a very real thing. It's also the identity death of who you've been. If you're a man, traditionally in the world right now, there's a lot of nice men, good guys, who try very hard to create this persona of being a good man. Now that's beautiful on many levels, but they also have a lot of pleasing habits. They also do things that are out of alignment with who they want to be. And so they sacrifice themselves to look after their families or those around them and neglect themselves. So that identity in the process of journeying the hero's journey, going on this adventure, going towards what they want, needs to die. And in that process, people, they might start saying no to people they originally said yes to. And what this does is means people might think they're now a bad person. Hey, they're actually not a good person anymore because they're saying no to something they didn't even want to do. And it can be assumed from the outside they're now a dick or a bad person. And this is a death of the perceived identity of who that person was. But it allows them to be more in their truth. And this is what they don't want to happen. They're afraid of the repercussions of what people might think or who they might have to become or what they might have to sacrifice. And it is something that someone, if they go on this journey, will have to come into relationship with that, hey, you are going to die. You are going to change and need to grow in a different way. And without that, it's going to limit you completely. So there's this question of, okay, what are the things you're afraid of? Okay, what do you need to sacrifice? What are you willing to sacrifice but may not need to? And this is a piece that I will address, is that you may not need to sacrifice what you think you do, but there must be a willingness to it. It's like leaving home for the first time and saying, hey, I'm going right now. I'll probably be back, but I might not be. And there's almost this unattachment to returning, but in that it creates the ability to actually keep it, because it doesn't keep us trapped in that box. Because when a person is willing to let it go, they're no longer allowing the bounds of what a person should be within that to keep them within this box. And this allows them to continue moving throughout life and go on their journey without the expectation that may have been tied up within that original thing. So really what I'm saying is that Underworld is one of the most important parts of the journey, because it is what shapes us as individuals. And we can't bypass this if we want to become awake, working, conscious, integrated beings. We can't bypass the underworld part of the journey. It's uncomfortable, and our ability to learn to navigate this is actually what strengthens us. It gives us the strength to walk through the world in the way that we want to walk, and gives us the ability to become who we're here to become. So if you're in it, I hear you. It's probably something that there's here for a reason. And that's not always comfortable to be like, oh yeah, this is here because of whatever it is. Maybe you had a lot of things that you were doing unconsciously that brought you into the dark night. And that's hard. There's a heaviness of that, of self-responsibility, of taking ownership of that you have actually created your life right now, that you have brought it to where it is, and now you must take responsibility for that which is around you. No one else can do that. There's no one else actually to blame. And the more you try and do that, the more you try and say, hey, this is their fault or them, it just takes away from you owning your power and will probably keep you in the underworld for longer. So if you're in it, really sit with it and ask, hey, what brought me here? You know, how did I create this? Because on some level you did. And that is not saying it's your fault, but there's a level of responsibility that you need to take and address so you can come back into relationship with your power, so then you can actually move through the world in the way that you want. So the underworld is here to serve you. It can be uncomfortable, it can be dark, and there's a quote I'm going to leave you with, which is a Latin phrase, per tenebras lux orta est, which says, through darkness, light is born. So let this darkness be what shapes you and births the light that you are.